Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. Just a reminder, we will have interpretation services available in Spanish, Arabic, and Amharic.
Bien, muy buenas tardes a todos. Gracias por incorporarse. Como recordatorio, vamos a tener interpretación en idioma español. Si usted está utilizando una computadora fija o una laptop, por favor, vaya a la parte de abajo de su pantalla, en donde están las herramientas. Ubique el globo terráqueo, que es el botón de interpretación. Haga clic allí y luego haga clic en Spanish, español, y podrá escuchar esta presentación en español. Si usted está utilizando una tablet o un teléfono inteligente, vaya a la parte derecha de abajo de la pantalla donde están los 3 puntos, haga clic allí y después haga clic en Join Audio, unirse al audio, y en Call over Internet, llamada por Internet. Después de ello, usted debe seleccionar el lenguaje de su preferencia, en este caso español, Spanish, y después haga clic en Done, finalizado. Muchas gracias.
እንኳን ደህና መጣችሁ የኤስቢኤስ ቤተሰቦች። በዚህ ስብሰባ ላይ ስለመጣችሁ እጅግ አድርገን እናመሰግናለን። እያንዳንዱ ሰው ይህን ፕሬዘንቴሽን በሚፈልገው ቋንቋ አገልግሎቱን እንዲያገኝ የትርጉም አገልግሎት እየተሰጠን ያለው። የትርጉም አገልግሎት በአማርኛ ለመጠቀም የምትፈልጉ የዓለም ቅርጽ ያለበትን ለማግኘት በኮምፒውተራችሁ ላይ በመጫን አምሃሪክ የሚለውን በመምረጥ አገልግሎቱን መጠቀም ትችላላችሁ። እንዲሁም በታብሌት እና በስልካችሁ ለምትጠቀሙ በስልካችሁ በታችኛው በኩል ያለችውን 3 ነጠብጣቦች በመጫን አምሃሪክ የሚለውን በመምረጥ አገልግሎቱን መጠቀም ትችላላችሁ። ታንክ ዩ።
مساء الخير، نشكركم على حضوركم معنا. نحب ننوه بأنه هذه الجلسة مزودة باللغة الترجمة الفورية المباشرة باللغات المختلفة الأمهرية، العربية والإسبانيولية. إذا كنتوا عم تحضرونا أو تشاهدونا من الكمبيوتر، رجاء الضغط على إشارة الكرة الأرضية لاختيار الترجمة، بعدين اللغة المناسبة لكم وهي العربية في هالحالة. وإذا كنتوا عم تحضرونا من التليفون أو الآيباد، ورجاء الضغط على إشارة النقاط الثلاثة بأسفل الشاشة كمان كرمال تختاروا الترجمة، بعدين اللغة المناسبة، بعدين إنكم تنضموا إلينا عن طريق عبر الإنترنت، وبعدين تختاروا الأوديو أو يعني السماع عبر الإنترنت أو وتشاهدونا مباشرة. وشكرا على حضوركم معنا.
And now I turn it over to Ms. Erica Gulick.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Thank you, Medea. Thank you to our interpreters. And thanks for joining us tonight for an update on the high school project. We have members of the city staff team here with us tonight to answer questions, as well as our Perkins Eastman design team. And so if we can pull up the presentation. Great, thank you. Go to the next slide, Medea. Okay, so tonight we're going to provide a few updates. At our last meetings in August, we focused a little bit more on the building design and specifically the aquatic facility. Tonight we wanted to update you on some of the sustainability features of the new design, as well as the site design, including landscaping and site access and parking. We'll also provide an update on the budget and schedule. And at the end, we'll have time to answer some of your questions. You should see in the bottom of your screen a Q&A chat feature. If you open that up, you can submit questions throughout our presentation, and you can also submit just comments that you want the team to receive. We do collect them all at the end, whether we answer them or not, to make sure they can inform our future meetings and our updates to our webpage. So please feel free to put questions or comments in the chat as we go along. We will wait till the end, however, to answer the questions, but you're welcome to submit them at any time. I will now turn it over to Ken Terzian with Perkins Eastman to begin some of the sustainability update.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. We wanted to start with just an overall view of the site. For those that aren't familiar, Braddock Road runs along the bottom, which is the south of the site. Our primary moves on the new design is flipping the existing field and school left and right, east and west. The new facility, the new building will be on the east side. The fields, the courts and basketball court and the tennis court, paddleball court will be on the west-hand side. We highlighted on this drawing one of the key sustainability features, which you see in green, that being the photovoltaic or the solar panels, which are structured above some parking areas and above the bleachers overlooking the fields. These provide both shade to the cars and the fans watching games on the field, as well as provide power. They're supplemented with photovoltaic or solar panels on the facade or building sides, as well as on the roof. Those aren't shown in this drawing. But collectively, we've been looking to right size the amount of solar panels so that in an annual consumption, the amount of power that the facility uses in a year is the amount of power that we've been able to capture and generate from the sun. That's called net zero. So that being one of our major goals of the project, to have a net zero energy use over the course of a year. Other key features of the site and sustainability have to do with stormwater management. We have, through pervious paving and through bioretention, which are areas of planted material where the plants don't mind getting their feet wet, so to speak. Those areas provide for infiltration of stormwater into the site. We are reducing the amount of stormwater runoff 10% from the existing facility as it's built. So we see that as a positive aspect along our sustainability goals. Other areas where we're benchmarking the facility are in our LEED green building rating system with a gold level. And the LEED program, for those that don't know, has aspects of site design as well as aspects of the interior design in addressing some of today's challenges in sustainable building, bringing natural light into the building, managing indoor air quality, having low VOC components on the interior of the building, and so forth. So if we look at the next slide, you'll see some updates on the building elevations. There are you'll see on the top, both of these are views along Braddock Road, one from the east side, one from a little bit on the west, showing the primary entrance on the view on the top. So we have solar panels, photovoltaics that also provide shading to the windows, again, reducing some of the solar gain, primarily in the western and southern facades, as well as adding additional area that we need in order to reach our net zero goals. We're working out some final details with the city architect on the building designs. These are the latest. We're finalizing some of the building materials and selections, and that's going on quite well. So in the following slides, we have some of the details on our civil design. We may have Kyle Bollinger from our civil engineering firm.
Kyle is on.
Yep, I'm here, Ken.
Yeah. Kyle, I was not sure Kyle was going to make it from his coaching of Little League in time, but I'm glad that you made it, Kyle. I don't have to try to fill your shoes not as well as you do. So handing it over to you.
Thanks, Ken. So what we're looking at here on the screen is a site section kind of showing the topography as if you're standing along Braddock Road, showing kind of what you would plan to see if you were standing on the Episcopal side of the of Braddock Road. A couple key things that are noted here is we'll have some tennis court lights and athletic field lights. They're both 40 feet and 60 feet above the playing surface of those. Around the athletic field, we're going to have a ball net to capture some of the balls from the various sports that we'll be playing. Due to the topography out there, there will be tiered retaining walls between the tennis, athletic field, and school areas, kind of providing some nice undulation as well as some aesthetic placemaking in between each one of these, as well as we'll have a lot of perimeter landscaping for proposed trees, as well as saving some of the existing trees that are out there around the current school campus. So the next slide here kind of highlights some of the existing landscaping and proposed landscaping that we're doing on a colored site plan. So what you can kind of see around the western edge as well as the northern side against some of the residential communities, kind of the opaque green circles are existing trees that will remain, and the darker green are various trees that we're proposing to plant along the buffer to just further enhance some of that visual screening between our proposed school and athletic areas with the our neighbors. And you can see that we've highlighted the tennis courts, the synthetic turf court, the basketball, futsal court, as well as the bus loop parking areas. There's a bunch of street trees that are down along West Braddock Road that we've coordinated with the city to plant some additional street trees, basically along the entire frontage, as well as what Ken showed before and some of the photovoltaic canopies that are over the parking, which are kind of shown in a blue color here. And the next slide here shows some of the sample trees that we're proposing to be planted around the property here. Some of them will be used as buffer trees in between our property and the adjacent properties. Some of them will just be planted kind of around as street trees, and then other street trees. I'm sorry, one of my kids just walked down in here on me. Around the property. And then the next slide has some of the shrubs that we're proposing as well, just various around some of the placemaking around the school. So the next slide here is the proposed board-on-board wooden fence that we're proposing to replace around the western edge, as well as the northern property line. It's kind of a sample fence picture of what we've got here that will be proposed to be replaced as part of our project, as well as the construction detail shown on the right side of the page here. And the next slide shows the, I guess, it really shows the lighting and photometrics of the proposed athletic field lights here. And it's highlighted as the boundary for the field lights. It's kind of a blue line on the screen. But what that is showing is where it is the cutoff from the athletic field and the tennis court lights. As you can see on the photo on the top right there, the current light design, this is just a sample photo, but it's a very directional light that really maintains the lighting to the playing surface, and there's very minimal spillover that's outside of the playing surface. So that blue line represents kind of where it turns to dark as opposed to the lit playing area. And as it shows on the graphic on the left, everything is contained inside of our property for the lighted areas, as well as the inclusion of the additional landscaping will just aid to help the lighting from the field and the tennis courts. And then the bottom right photo is kind of a sample of the potential parking lot lights that we would add as part of this project. So with that, we'll put up a polling question here as it relates to the landscaping and the fence, with a question on how well do you think the proposed landscaping and fencing for Mini Howard meets the needs for the community? Very well, well, neutral, or not well. So we'll pause for a minute here, and if you have any specific comments, please put them in the Q&A feature as well.
We still have answers coming in, so we'll leave it on for a few more seconds.
Okay, looks like majority of the votes that came in were very well, and a couple neutrals. So that's great news to hear that folks are liking what we've got going on as part of this project. So then this next slide here is showing some of the parking that we've got around the campus. With the parking spaces shown in purple are the permanent parking spaces that will be available all the time throughout the day. And the parking that's shown in light blue are the shared parking areas between both bus parking for pickup and drop off, as well as regular vehicular parking spaces that could be used while buses aren't there. And just an overall summary of it, the required parking per the Alexandria zoning code is between 174 and 179. Of the proposed parking, we have 163 as the permanent parking, with an additional 56 parking of vehicles in the shared area to bring a total of 224 parking spaces for the school. And our envision of the shared parking area could be used for potential visitors or during athletic events where buses don't need to be there to help with some of the additional parking needs during some of those high use events. And the next slide here will show the the car circulation through this western parking area, which is the shared bus loop and parking adjacent to the athletic field. There's two arrows here, one being blue for a traditional car, and the red being the buses. As you can see, both of them are kind of a one-way loop through here with angled parking spaces. And the existing curb cuts that are along Braddock Road will serve as the access points to this, with the entry point being where the current eastern parking lot is of Minnie Howard, which is right next to the athletic fields. And then the exit point will be the western, kind of where the bus drop-off loop is. So we'll utilize the same curb cuts for the entry and the exit movement there. And then the pedestrian access will be rebuilding the sidewalk out front along Braddock Road for a wider sidewalk with street trees, as well as various pedestrian sidewalk connectivity points into the both athletics as well as the school side of it. And then the next slide will show the proposed parking that we've got on the eastern kind of main surface parking area. Now we're still evaluating a couple options in terms of how this access is going to work with the city staff, but our current proposal that we're working with the city on is for a traffic signal that would be at this driveway that would be a flashing light for a majority of the day, but during the pickup and drop-off times of the school is when the traffic signal would operate to help get vehicles both into the parking lot and out of the parking lot. And if anyone's familiar with FC Hammond and the flashing light that's over there, it would be similar to that operation where it's flashing yellow for most of the day on the main Braddock Road access, but then it would be operational just during the school peak times there. And then with that, I believe I'll turn it back over to Erica.
Thanks, Kyle. And so just to wrap up, we wanted to provide some updates on the budget and the schedule. So on the budget, we just received actually last week, so we're still reconciling it and making sure it's accurate, but we did receive an estimate based on our design development drawings. And based on that, you can see we have our budget in that budget column, and the DD estimate is in the final column. For the high school program and the aquatic facility, we are pretty close to on budget and should certainly be able to meet that. And we're still working with the city on establishing their funding through their capital improvement budget. But you can see the estimates for them for the Teen Wellness Center portion of the building. It's 1.1 million, and for DCHS has early childhood spaces as well as office spaces. It's close 7.8 million. So again, as I said, this is just an estimate at this stage in the project, but based on where we are in the design and some of the value management we will begin pursuing in October with the design team and our construction team. This project should be on budget. Next slide. This is our overall project timeline. So you could see, and it's remained the same. So on the top, we show our educational design timeline. So we know while we are designing and building a new high school building, we're also designing and implementing some changes to our high school program. They are working through their design process now, and we'll continue to work with our educational design team, and then we'll work on implementing that prior to opening. And that aligns with our construction timeline. So right now you can see we're in the design in that purple area of fall of 2021. We are looking to potentially start construction earlier in the spring, potentially as early as March, but again, we're still working through that schedule with our construction manager, Gil Bain, and we'll determine when we can start, but we may be able to start a little bit earlier, which is always good in this market if we're able to do that. And then construction will continue probably for about 2 years on the building side. And then we'll be able to occupy the building in September of 2024. And after that, we'll go back and demolish the old Mini Howard building and put in the new fields and the bus loop and all of that on the other side of the site. So based on where we are in the project, we do believe that we'll be able to open the building on time, which is also good. And we can go to the next slide. Our next steps in the process, we just wanted to let you know. So tonight we're giving this update on sustainability and site access. We will have another meeting likely in November, or potentially other engagement opportunities such as a survey or something else in November or December. We want to give updates. Tonight we're giving you kind of an update on the exterior design, but we know there are a lot of outstanding questions on how it will operate, how it will be shared, what will be the hours of operation, who will be operating it. And those are things we're working internally on, hoping to be able to give an update by the end of the calendar year. In January of 2022, we're still targeting going to public hearing to Planning Commission and City Council for approval. And the public is welcome to sign up to speak at those meetings. And then in early spring or potentially even late winter, we'll have some final meetings to prepare for construction of the project. And go to the next slide. Okay, and I will now turn it over to my colleague, Erin Metcalf, our CIP Communications Specialist.
You. So at this time, we're going to answer some questions. So if you have a question you'd like to ask us about anything we've talked about or about the high school project in general, please put that in the Q&A chat at the bottom of your screen. And while you're doing that, I will let you know that our Superintendent's Advisory Team meeting is tomorrow. We invite all of our community members to watch that meeting. The content will be very similar to what you've heard tonight, but there will be discussion from our advisory team members. And if you think of a question later or you have any concerns, please feel free to email us at hsproject@acps.k12.va.us. And you can find our updates online and in our newsletter, which you can sign up for on our web page as well. And that Superintendent's Advisory Team is Wednesday. My apologies. Wednesday, the 29th. I'm losing track of the days. So it looks like we have a question or two in the chat, so we'll get to those. Is there still a plan to include housing on this campus?
Thanks, Erin. I'll take that. No, there is not. As of, I believe it was February or March of this year, the school board voted to exclude housing on the campus. So there is no proposed plan to include housing as part of this project.
All right, thank you. And then what is the time frame for this project?
Okay, can you go back to the timeline slide, please, Medea? Thanks. And I think this question came in before we went through this, but just to be clear again, We're still in design right now. We're actually close to the end of design, really wrapping up some of those final details, but could start construction as early as March of next year. I apologize, we'll edit it on the slide. I see it says March of 2021. Oh, sorry, that is accurate. We could start our construction as early as March of 2022. So in 6 months from now, potentially, and that construction could continue through to September of 2024. Likely will be finished earlier than that, potentially winter or spring of 2024, for us to be able to have plenty of time to move into the building, to get the staff trained on the new building, and open in September of 2024. And then, as I mentioned, that's really kind of the first phase of the project, the new building. And then we'll go back and tear down the old building and put in the new fields and the other site amenities that Mr. Bollinger walked through tonight.
And then we had a request for the project webpage link, so I have just put that in the chat, just so everyone knows. Then our next question is, will current student sports activities be impacted by the construction?
That's a great question. And I know my colleague Jack Brown from the city is on too to talk about potentially the city's impact, but we are working with the athletic department as well as our physical education team and recreation, parks and cultural activities to minimize the impact. The fields will be taken out of commission once we start construction. So we won't be able to use the fields once construction is started, and that could impact spring athletics. However, our athletic department, as I mentioned, is aware of this and looking for other options. As you may know, we did open our new stadium at the King Street campus last week. So that does, I apologize, now almost 2 weeks ago on September 17th. So that does provide us some flexibility, and we have other fields throughout the city that we'll have to use. But Jack Brown, did you want to respond to that question at all?
I would say, like ACPS, we're also looking at options to how we could relocate the community programming that's going on in the field by, using existing locations. So we're aware of it, and we are trying to make those interim plans.
Thank you. And our next question is, will students from the main campus have access to Mini Howard?
Yes, they will. Our educational design team is working through how that could work or how often that might be, but they will have access. All students will have access to both campuses and different courses on both campuses. Dr. Mann, I know you're here tonight. Do you want to respond to maybe where we are in the process? Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Gulick. You actually answered the question. We're still working through that. We just have to remember that Mini Howard will no longer just be a 9th grade campus. It'll be a 9th through 12th grade campus. So as we continue to work with Mr. Ballas and his team, how that will work and what classes will be situated there. So we're still in that planning phase for that, but we just all have to remember that it will no longer be a 9th grade only campus. It will be 9th through 12th grade.
Yes, thank you for bringing that up.
And our next question, how many students is the new school projected to have, and will it affect the current location of Alexandria City High School main campus?
Okay, another good question. So the new school is projected to have 1,600 students. So we're really trying to accommodate for all high school students. We do have a growing enrollment at the high school level, and so we want to make sure they're all able to go to our high school. And so that is nearly double the current size of Mini Howard. The current Mini Howard fits, the capacity is about 850. So we're going to 1,600. And as Dr. Mann mentioned, it's not just 9th graders anymore. It's for 9th through 12th. The existing campus, the King Street campus, will stay where it is, Alexandria City High School King Street campus. And those campuses are intended to be connected. It's one high school. Students will have opportunities at both campuses. It's not moving or replacing the Alexandria City High School King Street campus location. That one will stay there, and because we have plenty of students potentially growing to up to 5,000 within the next few years. So it is not impacting that location.
Thank you. And that looks like it was our last question. So I will remind everyone that if you think of a question or if you have a comment you'd like the project team to know, please feel free to email us at that project email on the screen. And we want to thank you. Oh, I think looks like I got another question.
It looks like we got a couple more.
Just kidding. So current Mini Howard will remain 9th grade this current school year and the next 1 or 2 years, or what is the timeline?
I'm on mute. And Dr. Mann, if you want to help me out again, you are welcome to, but I believe Mini Howard will remain 9th grade until we open the new building. So that is potentially until September of 2024. But again, the educational design team and our Alexandria City High School staff may work for some earlier integration just to make the transition smoother. I apologize, my dog is starting to make a noise. Dr. Mann, I saw you took your camera off. So if you wanna mention anything, go ahead.
No, I thought you answered that. Right now, the plan is for it to remain, but we may, as Ms. Gould mentioned, may say, hey, let's try some of this out now before we go grand opening. But right now, again, it's all still in the planning phases, trying to get as much information as we can and working with everyone on this call, but also other members of the team to try to get our best thinking of how we move students across not just these 2 campuses, but our whole entire connected campus, which will have right now it's 4 campuses, but we'll also have our early college also in 2024.
I am also muted. Our next question is, will the students continue traveling between campuses?
Yes. So the answer to that question is yes. How often or how many, we don't necessarily know yet, or if it's every day or in the middle of the day, that hasn't been determined, and ultimately students' schedules will determine that. But yes, there will still be traveling between the 2 campuses because there will be different offerings potentially at either campus. Currently, those students are offered transportation, but we do know we have a lot of students who do choose to maybe walk or bike between the campuses or walk or bike from home. And in that instance, we are trying to improve pedestrian safety for our students between the 2 campuses as well through this project.
Right. What is the plan for the construction year? Where will the students be located during that time?
A good question. I apologize for not being clear about that. So the plan is that the existing Mini Howard building will remain open and will be isolated from the construction throughout the construction of the new building. I actually, in the spirit of putting people on the spot, Lauren, just because we haven't heard from Gilbane tonight, Lauren Doucette from Gilbane Building Company, do you maybe want to respond to this, just how you've done this in the past or what the site might look like, just so people can start to get an idea?
Sure. So we will have the eastern portion of the site is where we'll be constructing the new school, while the existing Mini Howard campus stays open on the western portion. So just based on the size of the buildings and the foundations, we will encroach a little bit on the existing parking lot, but we will keep the western side drive aisle open. So we'll have our safety fencing, our erosion and sediment control. So there will be a barrier to keep pedestrians out. So there will be a clear signage and pedestrian protection as well.
Thanks, Lauren.
Mm-hmm. Right. That was the last question we have in our Q&A. I'm going to give it a minute though, because last time I said that I was wrong. So if there are any more questions, please feel free to put them in that Q&A chat. We're happy to answer anything you have.
Also, if you just have a comment on anything we presented on tonight that you want the team to hear, we will take that back. We get a kind of a text document after the meeting of everything put in the Q&A, so feel free to submit anything. All right, Erin, I'm not seeing any takers.
It looks like we're good. So just a reminder again, we have the advisory team meeting on Wednesday. Feel free to email us and you can find updates online and in our newsletter. Thank you so much for joining us this evening, and we look forward to hearing from you in the future as we continue to collect feedback.